Man, you guys good today? Yeah. Man, well, I'm excited. I got a little bit of excess adrenaline happening from excitement because Friday night I got to go and do the national anthem again for the Lakers, and yeah, awesome. But I've got to do this 13, 14, 15 times now, something like that. And it's just spectacular every time. But this in particular time was extra special. Wife and kids were with me. Had the whole family going, and it was a blast. And so one of the perks of getting to do the national anthem is they give you they comp you for your dinner before the whole event happens. And they got this really awesome fancy buffet, which I know sounds like an oxymoron, fancy buffet, but it really is, right? It's like next level. They got the little chefs with the hats cutting up the meat and the whole 9 yards, right? And so we're really excited about it. So we get up there, and I'm taking my plate. Let's say it's my first one. But I'm taking my plate, and I'm going up there, and I go around the corner and about run into Magic Johnson. Listen, I love doing the national anthem, and I love the whole thing. But I'm excited most of anything because they give me seats to go to the games. I bleed purple and gold. I am a diehard fan. I've been raised on the Lakers my entire life. It actually goes back generations. My original family, not original, like I have more. Anyways, but my dad's side of the family is all from Minnesota, like the old school Lakers. Literally, this goes way back, right? It's in our blood. So, and this is Magic Johnson. He's the greatest Laker. We can argue it later, but there's not really an argument because Magic Johnson is the greatest Laker. And he's there standing in front of me. I'm holding my plate, and he's like asking for pork or something, right? And like he's talking to the guy, and I'm just like, So slowly, of course, I'm bringing out my phone, right? And so I slide it over to the pitcher. I get it on the reverse facing me because this is going to happen, right? And I'm like, Mr. Johnson, can I get a picture with you? Greatest response ever. He's like, I'm ready. Let's do this. Oh, okay. Go ahead and put it up there. Yeah, that happened. Listen, guys, I don't know if you can tell. Yeah, he's leaning down there. Like, no joke. It's crazy. He just, that smile is ready. It's ready. At any given moment, that smile is ready. Because here's the funny thing, right? I'm like, I'm over here like, getting pork or whatever it is. He walks off and I'm just talking to the guy and I'm like, dude, can you just believe it? And he's like, I work here. I've seen him all the time. I'm like, I know, but, right? And then in the background, I swear to you, this is what I hear like 2 different times. I'm ready. Let's do this. Other people asking him for pictures, and he is on point, ready to go with the thumb, the smile, the whole 9 yards. Man, so that happened, right? So then you go down and you get to where it's time you walk all the way down, right? It's oh gosh, it's the coolest thing. So you're walking all the way down, row A. You know what becomes before A? Nothing. There's no letters before A, right? So row A. Right there, like it's me here, and then like this front row, that's the basketball hoop. Literally, that's our seats, right? So I know I'm saying literally a lot. It's annoying, I just realized I did that. By the way, if you're new here, I'm a little manic, and this happens sometimes. But so we're sitting there, we're looking at this thing, and the whole, there's a countdown happening, it's slowly starting to fill up. There's like 30 minutes before I got to go do the national anthem. And slowly it starts to fill up. The buzz starts to happen. You can just feel it. Then they come out on the floor, and they're all shooting around. And then it gets to 4 minutes, and the lady comes over, and she was like, all right, you ready? And I'm like, yeah, I'm ready. So we walk on the court. Yeah, I got to walk on the court. So I walk on the court. I go over to the scorer's table, and I'm just standing there. And there is literally just chaos happening, right? You got both teams on either side shooting. You got trainers stretching out athletes. You got the revs walking around. You got people with cameras and cables everywhere. And if you were on the other side looking at the court, and you see this guy right here standing on the side just going... Everything's just moving around, right? It's like all like out-of-body experience, right? And I'm just like, what? This is so awesome. And never gets old, ever. People's like, do you get used to it? Do the nerves go away? No. I'm just sitting there like, just pounding, ready, just excited, right? And so then the announcer guy, which is, oh gosh, I wish I could just have this guy go around and introduce me to people, right? Like, he's like just shy of like Morgan Freeman, right? Like, he's got the best voice, and he comes across, and the ticker's going down, 30 seconds, 29 seconds, 28, and when that gets to 0, national anthem time, right? And I'm just like, oh man, here we go. And then he finally comes on the thing, and he goes, ladies and gentlemen, please rise and remove your caps for the national anthem sung by Jim Ranger. And I'm like, oh, right? So I'm walking out, and then all the chaos, literally, it's the craziest thing. All this chaos, people moving, basketballs flying everywhere. All of a sudden, it's just like in 10 seconds, everything is off the court. The teams are in lines. The lights go down. I stand on center court, and there's one spotlight, and there's a dude with a camera right here in my face. And I'm just like, so then I got to sing. So luckily, seriously, like, singing is like my comfort zone, right? I'm good if I'm singing. Talking makes me nervous still, but singing, I'm good, right? So they're ready to go. Oh, say, and I kick into it. And it was awesome, man. Flashes by, go off. And I remember like playing this back in my head, and it was funny because that moment, I'm goofing around up here, but where everything's chaos and happening, and I'm just like looking around like, wow. In that moment, it was funny because I had these thoughts like, I should be freaking out right now. Why am I not freaking out right now? Like, this is nerve-wracking. There's like 20, 30,000 people about to watch me sing this song that represents our nation that has been covered by every great singer known to man ever, right? Everybody's sung the national anthem, and here's me, and I'm about to have to go up there and do this. Why am I not freaking out? And it occurred to me as I was thinking through this. It was like really, in that moment, as silly as I look, just like all big-eyed, I was so overwhelmed with gratitude. Like this true sense of like, I'm about to do, the reason I'm nervous is because I'm about to do something that such a small percentage of human beings will ever get to experience, right? There's this realization that I'm about to partake in something, I'm about to experience something that very few people. And I say that to you guys to get our message started because we're going to be talking about generosity today. But it all stems from a true sense of gratitude, understanding what you've been given. And it doesn't have to be, singing at the Lakers game. Anytime I'm nervous, it's because I'm about to step out in faith, right? Anytime I feel that come up inside of me, that thing, it's because I'm about to step out in faith. Sometimes it's scary because it might be a bad thing that's going on. Sometimes it's a beautiful thing. But the point of it is having this attitude of gratitude. I'm a poet, didn't know it, just nailed that just now. But it's literally this attitude where you have such a grateful heart that, God, I didn't deserve it. I wasn't entitled to it. Yes, I've worked my life learning how to sing and crafting my skills and all that stuff. But even in that, I still didn't earn and I don't deserve it and I wasn't entitled to it. It was just, I was the one who was there in that moment. I'm the one who gets to be a part of it. And when you see life that way, man, without even thinking, I get out there and I sing a song, do the thing, right? And it's not because I was just that prepared or because I was whatever. It's because I was truly lost in the moment and being appreciative and I didn't have time to freak out, right? And that leads us to having a generous heart when we realize how much we've been given, right? And it's not just the things. It's truly this sense of we have been given this unbelievable, priceless gift in Jesus Christ. Our freedom, our hope, our salvation, our redemption. Perspective, His Spirit alive in us. This is what we get. And so today, when we talk about this, I think we're a pretty generous church, right? We just had a friend of ours, Ted Olbrich, come in this last Wednesday night for our first Wednesday service, and it was beautiful. And then we took up an offering afterwards and was able to bless this ministry that's in Cambodia that's doing amazing, beautiful things, working with orphans and this is a beautiful church. It's very generous. But there's definitely, we don't ever want to assume anything that we're not teaching what we do. We want to present to you exactly what God has presented us through his word, through his faithfulness over time. We want to be a community that leads the way with irrational generosity, right? We want to lead the way on being where it's beyond like why people look and just like, why are they so generous? Why are they so grateful? Why are they so happy? We will be known as Christ followers, the Bible tells us, by the way we love. And the love that it talks about is so big and so broad, but the big heart of it is gratitude and truly having this sense that God is so generous to us that we have nothing else to do but to respond by living a life of generosity. Most people, I would say, in our culture, and at times each and every one of us, we might think that we're more generous than we are, right? Because what happens is we begin to think that we're generous because we give. So we do something, feel good, and little butterflies, like, yeah, I just nailed that. I gave. I don't know if you guys saw me, but I gave. And we get this feeling that we're generous because we give, but they're two different things because it's really easy right now. So let's say this year we experienced a lot of crazy disasters going on all over our planet, right? And in a moment's time, within 24-hour time frame after disaster, millions of dollars was raised in relief, right? To help. It was all this text that we have. This technology now, which we even do through our offering, there's so many ways to be able to give in an instant moment. Pops up and says, donate $10 to Red Cross by texting blah, 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 right? Like, boom, and it sends, you donate $10, awesome. And then it raises all this money and it helps. It's real easy to start thinking that generosity is the same as giving, but they're two different things. They are related, but they're two different things. Giving is an action, right? Giving is, here's this, there's that. Giving, right? But generosity is a state of existence, a state of being. To be generous is to orient your life around the thrill of being used by God to make a difference. That's what generosity is. So giving and generosity is two different things. We got people, again, watching from all over the world. But here in America, our perspectives can get really skewed sometimes. We are so blessed, and in so many different ways, we can lose the sight of the blessings that we have on a daily basis, the things that we take for granted, that we use every day. Most Americans don't feel rich, yet we are, and here's the proof of this. For me, I went to get my family some food this week. I jumped in my car, started it, and it worked. Turn on the radio, listen to music, turn on the AC with the windows down. Don't judge me. I like to do that sometimes. And so I drive and I pass grocery stores, convenience stores, fast food stores, restaurants, past 8 or 9 different possibilities to get food, but I'm going after my favorite one, which is In-N-Out, obviously. And so, obviously, it has to be, it's everybody's favorite, right? So I'm driving, I get to In-N-Out, I order my food, they make it for me, they wrap it up in the cool little wrappings with the little scriptures hidden on the bottom. All this stuff is going on, and then I drive home and I bring it to my family, and I get to my house, which is a house, and then it's got this garage connected to it, which is a house for my car. Think about that. You have a house for your car. Some of you have a house with the possibilities of having 2 or 3 cars to live together as a community, I guess, of some sorts. And so you have this house for your car. And then I walk in my house, and guess what? My house is 72 degrees. Don't judge me again. I like it cold, so we run it. I'll pay for it. I'm willing to. But this is what we have on a daily basis. Now, again, everybody's story is different, but here's the bottom line. Check this out. If you have a car, not a good one, just a car. Let's say it runs. I have an '04 Envoy. It's got a little rattle in it, but it still goes, and I don't have to make payments. So I got my car, right? If you own a car, you are in the top 6 to 9% of the wealthiest humans on the planet. Just by owning a car. You can just live in your car. You don't have to have the house car thing. You can live in your car and you're still in the top 6 to 9% of the wealthiest humans on the planet. We can lose perspective a little bit on how blessed we are in this country, can't we? Okay, so then most Americans think we're generous. But the stats don't show that, because in America, the average American gives 2.8% of all their earnings, 2.8%. The reasons we don't give, I think one of the biggest ones is this idea that we have a scarcity mindset, right? We have this scarcity mindset that whatever we have now, we might not have tomorrow. So we might as well store up extra stuff just in case. And we get this scarcity mindset. It becomes this cycle that we live in because we all have a little bit of a hoarder in us, right? Some of your cars can't live in their house because it's filled with stuff, like me. So, but there's just stuff. I love my stuff. Gosh, I love my stuff, guys. I like nostalgia. We were out there looking the other day and it was like, why do we have this? I don't know. We just haven't moved it. We love our stuff. We all got a little bit of hoarder in us because we have this mindset that can creep in and can take over. And it's the scarcity mindset. And it begins this cycle. See, here's how it looks. We're going to put it up on the screen. So God supplies, right? The fundamental belief of a Christian is that God supplies all of our needs. He is the creator of all things. It's his breath in our lungs, right? Everything we have is because of him. So God supplies. We consume all that God supplies us, then we lack what we used to have. Then we begin to fear because, oh no, what happens? And then we get it back and then we start consuming again. And we do this whole cycle. Consume, we lack, we fear. Consume, we lack, we fear. And it begins this whole catch-22 of living life through this idea that what I had yesterday I might not have today, and what I have today I might not have tomorrow. And it begins this fear-driven mindset. You can't live generously when you're driven by fear, right? Because generous is you live open hand, you live pour out. You're like, this state of being. You can't be in that when you are consumed with it. You start to get in that, like, I just can't get ahead, right? And then we start to get into that victim mentality. Like, oh, I'm never going to get through this. I'm never going to take that next step. I'm never going to get beyond these bills or this debt or whatever it is. And then we just stay in this cycle. And what we want to talk about today is why we as Christians, why do we do what we do? Why do we live with a generous heart? Why do we give back out of our time, out of our money? Why do we invest in these ministries and these things that go on here? Why do we do this? And one of the main reasons is because we know that God gave all. Jesus Christ gave it all. That he gave first. And once we recognize that, we freely live in this. Some of you, again, I'm cynical by nature, okay? I'm going to be real honest. I think I try to be up here as much as possible. I tend to have a cynical mind in general. I'll look at something and be like, right? And talking about money in church, there's nothing more cynical sometimes that I can be about it because I've seen it abused so many times. All of us have seen different ways that it has been abused. But what we're talking about here today is not simply, hey, we need your money. It's we, all of us, living this life of generosity. And I promise you, every one of us, from my dad to every other person who is a part of this, leading this, involved in this, we're buying into this whole thing, not because it adds up to some ladder that you reach, some goal, or this is a journey that we are all learning to grow in and putting God first in everything. And that is what this sermon is about, is putting God first in all things. So, what do? We are Christians. We're part of this big body of Christ. It's got all kinds of flavors all over this world. But what is it that we do? What we do is we give generously. That's the first point. We give generously. Paul writes about it in 2 Corinthians, and he says this: you must each decide in your heart how much to give. And don't give reluctantly or in response to pressure. For God loves a person who gives cheerfully. Underline, gives cheerfully. And God will generously provide all you need. Then You will always have everything you need and plenty left over to share with others. Underline plenty left over to share with others. As the scriptures say, they share freely and they give generously to the poor. Their good deeds will be remembered forever. See, this is Paul saying God loves it and people loves it. God loves it because it's an act of submission, and God can't move on your behalf until you submit. God does not go against your free will. God will not move on your behalf until you submit. It's not a works thing. It's not you're earning it. It's God is not going to move past your free will. And if you choose not to trust in God, God can't move past your own pride or ego. He refuses. That's how gracious and loving our God is he doesn't bully his way into your life. And then people around you will be inspired by it. When you live generously, they're moved by it. It's the whole passing it forward thing. It's the idea of when you live this life, others are going to see it. They're going to respond. This is what Paul is saying. I remember when I was little and my dad was trying to teach me about tithe, right? I grew up in the church and so he would give me $1 to go put in the offering. And it was my favorite thing, man. We used to, when we were little, right? Our church was real little at that point, and we had these shiny offering things. You guys ever seen those, the old school ones, right? And then they had the little baskets that had the 2 handles on it. And so I'd go down front with my $1. I'd wave it to everybody. Put it in nice and slow, right? But then, because I'm a very observant person, and as a child, nothing was different about it. And so I was like, wait, we're talking about this tithe thing, and then they explained that it's 10%. This was awesome. You know what this meant? It means I take the $1 and I go buy a donut. Stay with me. The donut was roughly 60 cents. So I go buy a donut. I have 40 cents left over. All I got to do is turn in a dime. Right? It's 10% of $1. Dad gave me $1. All I got to do is turn a dime. So now I gave my offering, I got a donut, and I got a little change in my pocket. This was a good day for everybody, right? And what I missed, but I began to grow. You know, obviously, my dad caught me, and he was like, "You're missing the point, son. It's not about getting donuts." Yes, it is. But the whole heart of it that he was trying to teach me was this idea that it's about your heart and being a part of it. And yes, 10%, that's the standard. That's the baseline, right? The word tithe literally means your first 10%. That's what it means. And so throughout time, the tithe was always that was just expected. That wasn't even like a thing that they taught. It was just a part of life. You give the 10%, and that was. But the generosity it's all about the heart of it, like living this life poured out, and really understanding. I always thought, again, cynicism, honesty, when people would say stuff like, it's more of a blessing to give than receive, and I'm like, then you've never received a cool gift because it's pretty awesome, right? And then as I grew up and I really, it settled into me and I began to experience the giving part. And when you experience the giving part, that lasts. When you receive, it's beautiful in the moment. But man, when you're a part of something bigger than yourself and you see the impact in somebody else's eyes, from the smallest thing to the biggest thing, whatever it is, you realize you are a part of something bigger than yourself. Me and my wife, we got married super young, 20 years old, and we were living in Arkansas, and she was going to school full time, and I was working any job they'd let me work. I was driving pizzas around. I was a cook. I would help put siding on houses. I would shovel anything they would pay me to shovel, whatever it took. Right? I was just working, right? And so many times we stayed faithful in our giving. And again, please don't ever hear me like, look at me, because trust me, I'm a goofball. But experiencing the faithfulness of God, that when I would lose one of my jobs, we'd keep tithing. And then all of a sudden something would come up. I'd get a gig out of nowhere that I didn't expect. I got hooked up with different things that started to help where I could work here, play music here, do something, and it started to build up. And we experienced at a young age and a young part of our relationship of truly experiencing the faithfulness of God. And that's when you really, it's like, why do we do what we do? And it's really simple. We do what we do because of what God did for us and what God continues to do for us. So we give generously, and then God responds, and God multiplies abundantly. God multiplies abundantly. 2 Corinthians 9, 10 through 11 goes on to say, "For God is the one who provides seeds for the farmer and then bread to eat. In the same way, he will provide and increase your resources and then produce a great harvest of generosity in you. Yes, you will be enriched in every way so that you can always be generous. And when we take your gifts to those who need them, they will thank God." This is the next part of it. So God, we talked about the scarcity cycle, right? Well, there's another one. And it's the cycle of supply. And this is what happens when we trust in God. So put it back up there for me. So that's the one we did, right? Now this next one. So God supplies, we give, God multiplies. Keep going. God grows our faith. Now we're back to giving. Now it's a whole new cycle where we're not driven out of fear, but we're driven out of hope. That we're driven out of love. We're driven out of a peace in our soul that says the worst thing this world can do to us is death, and Jesus Christ overcame that at the cross. So what are we left with? We're left with confidence that has nothing to do with us or our ability to control anything. But we are completely at the mercy of the Creator of all things. The Spirit of God that is alive, that is in all, with all, through all. Tithing breaks the cycle of scarcity and creates a new cycle of supply. That's what the first 10%, that's the tithe. That's the thing that we're talking about. This first 10% belongs to God. And the power of the tithe is, there's more to it than that. So there's a power in the tithe. The first thing is the tithe teaches us to put God first. Teaches us to put God first. Not just at the top of your priority list, but the first part of every one of your priorities. See, we put God in all things. In our relationships, in our time, in our health, in our money, and whatever it is. We put God in first in every one of those things. And when we do that again, God blesses the rest. Sometimes, though, it takes a lot of getting past hurdles, of fears, of anxieties to even begin this walk of living generously. Deuteronomy 14:23 says, "The purpose of tithing is to teach you to always put God first in your life." Always, underline, always put God first in your life. So does that mean that you might have to rearrange your whole life? Yes. Not going to lie. Does it mean you might have to give up things? Yes. Does it mean your faith is going to stretch beyond anything you can imagine? Yes. Does it mean that God is going to meet you and that you are going to experience depths of relationship? Yes. There is so many things that come out of it when you begin to put God first. And again, the proverb, over and over again, it talks about that wherever your money is, your heart probably is, right? Like that, whatever you invest in is probably what is really close to you. So when you begin to put God first in all these things, man, that's when God moves. It takes faith to give the first part. It doesn't take faith to give the last part, right? Because if it's the last part of let me do all my stuff first, let me get all the things I need or whatever is going on, let me do that, and then if it's left, then we'll give. That's just happenstance almost. But when you give God the first part, for me and my wife, this is part of our regular routine, is that the day our checks come in, the day we get paid, our tithe goes straight back in. Because it can't be the afterthought, because God calls us to faith. He calls us to faith. And the reason he calls us to faith is that's where you live in the experiential part of knowing that you are a child of God. That you are unbelievably loved and that you are part of something that is unseen to this world, but is just as real and as tangible as anything you can see, feel, or touch. So that's the second part. The tithe builds our faith. The tithe builds our faith. Malachi 3:10-11. Bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house. Test me in this, says the Lord Almighty, and see if I will not throw open the floodgates of heaven and pour out so much blessing that there will not be room enough to store it. When you give God your first and your best, God will bless the rest. So much rhyming, I didn't mean to. But it's true. God blesses the rest of it. We're going to be doing this 90-day tithe challenge again at the first of the year. We do it every year. It's something very close to my dad's heart. This is where God says, test me. I'll prove it to you. And this is what we believe in. So when we do this, it'll be at the first of the year. But we do this 90-day tithe challenge where we say, listen, tithe for 90 days. If God doesn't do something special in your life, he doesn't do miraculous things in your life, if your faith is not expounded and it hasn't grown, we'll give you back every single penny, no questions asked at all. And we do this every year because we believe in what this says right here. That God says, test me. God doesn't say this anywhere else in the Bible, the whole test me part. This is where he says it though. Put your money where your mouth is and start to walk it out and see if I don't meet you. See if I don't pour out abundance where you can't even store it up. So the idea isn't this isn't like the, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. Yeah, the name it and claim it. I'm so blank right now. Huh? Yeah, whatever. The idea, okay, this isn't like a pyramid scheme. Let's go that, right? This isn't like a get rich fast thing. This isn't like, oh, you give a little bit here and then God is going to your 401 is going to blow up, right? This is, maybe it will, I don't know. But the point of it has nothing to do with that. It's the abundance of blessing. The abundance of blessing that when you step out in faith, God moves. 90%. If you give 10%, that means you have 90%. 90% with God's blessings go so much further than 100% without it. So much further. Number 3, the tithe provides for the work of God's church. Again, Malachi 3:10 says, bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house. Does God need food? No, he's God, right? Like he's not going to starve or something. He's God, right? So when he says that there may be food in my house, is that for God? No. Listen, the food is for you, for me, for us, collectively, that there may always be a way to provide for the needs of where you're at, your community. We talked a little bit about it, but I mean, the silliness of the cost of things to do stuff, right? The roof that we were talking about. It's like tons of money to get this done. And yet God keeps providing. And we have all this equipment back there. I don't know if you guys remember the big flood that happened over in the other building right across the way here. These are needs of things, practical needs. But what happens in this place is far bigger than the place. What happens here is the ministry, the lives that are changed. I could right now just start going through story by story by story of people who's walked in this place just feeling the burden and the weight of life, not having any inspiration, not having any hope, and coming in here and somehow through the people who shake your hand at the front, to the coffee, to the children's ministry that don't just babysit your kids but teach them the love of God, the youth that goes on, the ministry, the prayer teams that are down front, the lights, the singing, everybody, all these people coming together, giving their gifts and their times to provide ministry and meet people where they're at, to provide this safe place for you to walk in right where you're at without any condemnation, without any fear of I don't stack up or I don't look the part, that you can walk in here and be exactly where you are. This is the work that you get to be a part of, that I get to be a part of when we give back. This is a life of generosity because you can't be generous without perspective. And the perspective is this: we are a part of something bigger than ourselves. And I can't even tell you how grateful I am for that. Because if it's all about me, what happens, right? You hear me say this little thing all the time. If you cut your finger, you got all this body here, right? All this mass, yet the only thing you're focused on is what? Your tiny little finger, right? That's all you're focused on is that little pain, that little thing right there, and it becomes magnified, and that's all you see. But when you put God first, all of a sudden your perspective goes back to, wait, though, that pain is small. And there is so much more going on when you keep your eyes fixed on Jesus and not on the things of this world. The fears, the anxieties, the manipulation, the egocentric, when you get away from that and you keep your eyes fixed on Jesus and how he redeemed us all, how he revealed the perfect love of God. When Paul says, I am convinced that there is nothing in all of creation that can separate you from the love of God. Without Jesus Christ, we wouldn't even have an idea of what that means. But it literally means that nothing can separate you from the love of God. But you cannot be aware of it. And you can miss out on it because your perspective is fixated on whatever is hurting you at the time. And God says, put me first and see if I don't pour out abundance of blessings. See if I don't open your eyes to see life in a whole new way. We believe this. We do this. This isn't just something we teach or whatever. Like, this is the heart of it. Everything boils back down to submission. Jesus Christ followed submission all the way to the cross. All the way to the cross. Jesus Christ gave first. That's why we give. Of anything we give. Time, money, resources, any of it. Is because we're constantly remembering that Jesus Christ did it all. We are leading people at this church. The reason we are part of this, the reason we give to this, the reason that it helps our perspective is because we are leading people to become fully devoted followers of Jesus Christ. And we need a lot more of that in our world and our community.